Hi everyone, welcome back to Letters to an Asexual. This is number 80. So I'm making this just as we go into June 2021. And June for a lot of places is Pride Month, and I'm wearing my Make America Gay Again bracelet. It's funny. Uh, so I am going to summarize a letter or two. Not so much a letter as some comments that I saw, and I'm going to summarize them, A, because I don't want to call out anyone specifically, and B, because I saw these messages a while ago and I don't want to dig them up again. I'm not exactly sure where I saw them. I think that they were on Tumblr somewhere. But in place of reading an actual verbatim letter, I will summarize for you that I saw a couple of people criticizing one of the sections of my book, The Invisible Orientation, kind of taking a section of it out of context to suggest that I recommend asexual people not expect to be seen as queer or as part of the queer community, and that we count as allies. That is absolutely not true and certainly does not represent my feelings on the matter. But I think somebody must have said something about my book, and then there was like a rash of people reacting to whatever they took out of context. Because I didn't see this since, what was it, 2013, when the book was published. I haven't seen people talking about this or like this. And then all of a sudden there were like 3 or 4 comments that all kind of said the same thing, that, oh my gosh, this author thinks that aces aren't queer. So I figured, just as a precursor to going into Pride Month, I should talk a little bit about ace queerness and clarify what the section in my book that talks about asexual people in queer communities actually means. So if you haven't seen the book or haven't read that part or haven't looked at it recently, there is a section that talks a little bit about ace people trying to coordinate with mainstream queer activism. And when I made when I wrote the book, it was less common for asexual people to be automatically included. Even at the point that I wrote the book, I had not encountered a whole lot of in-person pushback to asexual inclusion, but you'd still hear people kind of hollering about it online, saying, well, you guys aren't oppressed, so what are you doing here? That old thing. And what I've noticed as we've come closer to the present day from then is an automatic inclusion of aces in so many more queer resources. And I mean, it's really just a testament to the outreach that so many of you folks have done, so much of the ace activism that has gone forward since we began. And it's really encouraging to see so many people just including the ace flag in their roundup and including the A in the acronym and not referring to it as allies. So that is really exciting. But at the time that I wrote the book, there was a lot more kind of loud pushback against asexual people wanting to be in queer groups or to be considered queer, or sometimes that we were being perceived as interlopers or as trying to take resources from people who really deserve them. And I've talked before about the Oppression Olympics, and I don't want to go there again, but one of the things that I think we should really acknowledge about asexual queerness is that some homophobia that exists out there is explicitly anti-gay, but almost all anti-gay sentiments are not just anti-gay, they're also pro-straight. So to put that in different terms, it's not just that they don't want you to be gay, it's that they want you to be straight. And we fail the second test. There are some ace people that do identify as straight, and that is not something that I would ever want to take away from people. I think that it's fine if if you're a hetero-romantic person or you have some other reason for saying, I consider myself straight, that is fine. But most aces do not consider themselves straight because being straight is not the default. And if you don't have sexual attraction to a different gender partner, that's generally what straight means. But some people who have cross-gender attraction romantically, they'll say, I consider myself a straight asexual person or a heteroromantic asexual person. It's still a type of queerness because asexual people are not heterosexual people, even if they have a romantic attraction to a different gender. But it is up to the individual, in my opinion, if that person wants to claim a queer identity. Some of them don't feel comfortable doing it because they know that people will see them as a straight couple, and it's just that if you start using arguments like that, then one of the more established letters of the LGBT is also targeted, and we see this a lot in queer communities where bisexual people will be treated like they're less queer or don't have the right to the same resources, or are co-opting resources that they don't deserve if they are in a cross-gender relationship or are perceived to be in a heterosexual relationship. Bi people are still bisexual, even if the relationship that they're in at the time makes them look to the uninitiated observer who's not asking about their specific feelings like a heterosexual couple. So bisexual people are not defined by who they're dating at the time or who they're married to, and that is also true for asexual people. Some ace people also do not want to use the word queer. Some ace people don't consider themselves to be queer. That is also fine. But my personal interpretation of asexuality is that it is an inherently queer orientation because we live in a society that expects us to be straight, and we're not straight. And for many people, that manifests in some ways that are strikingly similar to some of the pushback that LGBT people get. And of course, it should go without saying that many, many asexual people also have one of those other letters that applies to either their gender identity or their sexual orientation or both. So I guess I should say romantic orientation, because a lot of asexual people, consider asexuality to be their sexual orientation, and then might use a word like lesbian or gay or bi as their romantic orientation. But some people who are gray sexual or demisexual may also be describing sexual attraction with those terms. So it gets very, I guess, complicated sometimes to pick apart kind of, well, who belongs here and who doesn't. I think that defaulting to inclusion should always be the first inclination that people have when they are involved in activism. You shouldn't be looking for a reason why a person who is looking for fellowship and support should not be there or is stealing from somebody by wanting to be there. I've seen the damage that exclusion causes, and it's an awful lot more at risk than whatever people think that they're gaining by keeping somebody out that they think doesn't belong there. So to go back to a comment that was thrown around about what I had said in my book, one of the recommendations that I had made for ACEs who wanted to join groups, who wanted to be part of queer activism, I had put forward the notion that anybody who starts or runs a group has the right to decide who belongs there. And, it's sometimes they are excluding people for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they're saying, oh, well, we don't include ACE people because we perceive such and such about them and we don't include them. That sucks, but it's always everybody's right to make a group for whatever they want. And I think that it's important that activism seeks to enlighten people like that, but not through demanding that you be in their space. That crosses a line for me. And especially if it's clear you're not wanted and the person is not doing their homework. If they're some kind of community organizer and they're still going to say that about ACE people, and they're not going to do they're not going to do the research that they should do to understand why their mission statement should by all rights include asexual people. You're not The reason that I'm saying people might not want to try to muscle their way into those places is you're not going to be safe. It's not about like, oh, we just need to respect all these people even if they're bigots. That's really not what I'm saying. I mean, again, I do think that people deserve the right to define spaces for whatever they want, but you need to take care of yourself, and you need to be in a place that is actually going to be supportive of you. And some of these places that are, for whatever reason, hostile to our participation, you are not going to find what you want in there. If you're coming to these places to share resources, to give and take from each other's fellowship, but you find out that the leadership is willing to say to you some of the same things that heteronormative society is going to say to you, you're certainly not going to get what you want out of that group, and you're also just possibly not going to be safe there. And so one of the reasons that I recommended in the book that people who are having trouble finding queer groups that are accepting, which was much more likely back then than it is now, that they look for groups that accept allies. And I think that might have been the problem with the quotes that people were using from my book, because I think they were perceiving me as saying like that ACEs aren't queer, that we're just allies or whatever. And that is not the purpose of saying that if you can't find something that is going to be supportive of you, you might consider going to a group that accepts allies, because that means that even if they don't accept you as a fellow queer person, you will still be safe in the atmosphere, and you would be much more likely to be able to access people who will listen to you. There will be a chance to grow from within those kinds of organizations if they are open-minded enough to include people who may not actually be exactly like them. And so you'll be safer, and you'll also be more likely to be able to reach some of the people who might otherwise be closing the door in your face. And nobody wants that when you're trying to have a community and you're trying to find people who are similar to you, who have had similar experiences, and groups that have broader definition of what constitutes membership are more likely to be able to include people who aren't feeling comfortable with certain labels yet, or they may not be out yet, or they may not be able to they might be worried about how they're going to be treated. I've seen this online a lot, actually, especially from younger and newer identifying aces, who they're like, oh, I really want to go to this organization, but I'm afraid that they're going to kick me out. I'm afraid they're not going to accept me. So that recommendation, that people who are afraid that this might happen to them should look for groups that have in the mission statement that they have a broad acceptance. That way, you're not gonna run the risk of having a more traumatic experience, especially if you are reaching out to your community to try to support you. That is the last thing that you need. So, yeah, if you happen to see any of those references, I think that's kind of how they're trying to spin it, and this is me kind of spinning it the other way so that people can understand why that is beneficial, and also why, in the context of the time that it was a little more necessary. So anyway, I personally don't like to go to Pride events because they tend to be crowded. So I don't like street parades and stuff like that. It's not my thing. So I've actually never been to like a Pride parade or a Pride like outdoor celebration or party, like that kind of thing, or whatever. I just enjoy looking at the pictures. I've never marched in the asexual group of a parade, but I've done some events that are related to Pride, and I've been invited many times to speak at events that have a connection to Pride, and almost all of the larger events that I've been part of have been affiliated with a queer group. So, I mean, even back to 10 years ago, I was already seeing that primarily mainstream queer activism understands where we're coming from and sees us as what we are, and understands why that is an inherently queer identity. If a person wants to claim that for themselves, it's perfectly valid. So that sums up my feelings on the whole thing. And if anybody has any thoughts or questions about kind of the whole rainbow, feel free to pop into my comments. I will end this here. Have a great Pride Month.